All right, let's have a look at the last lesson for week 6, lesson 19 for H Radio 223 part-timers. Hi, and again, thanks for the patience just in terms of you can, yeah, I've really been struggling in terms of my sinuses, the coughing, all that stuff. I did get some medicine, sidebar, I know you care, and it feels just a little bit better right now. I'm sure you're going to be able to tell a little bit of a difference. Okay, let's look at the last lesson for the week, which is looking at clocks and how we can. I'm just going to break it down in quite a number of ways so that you can remember the clock from first year, which was introduced there. There'll be some things that are going to spark your memory and be like, oh, okay, I do recognize this. And then, of course, we will once again cover it in more detail in the third year. I am going to be also pulling up some. It's again more of a like a third year level in terms of the interpretation of the clock that I've got and I shared with my short course. You'll see a little bit later on. It's a bit of an image, two images that have the first 2 quarter hours of a proposed, let's say, drive show with a little bit of music rotation, and the imaging is also included in there. But yeah, bit by bit, and we'll have a look at some PDFs as well that'll make this a holistic understanding of how to approach the clock once again as we revisit it through Cullinan and Nash's Next Level Radio in Chapter 4, pages 115 to 118. Okay, again, at any one point, if you are confused or you need some assistance, just get me on the WhatsApp group. That'll be the easiest. And otherwise, yeah, let's continue with it. Right. How do we get to know our audience? Well, we know that from previous lessons, we have run research that is probably the best way to really get to know your listener, right? Understanding them in many different ways, their lifestyle, their behaviors, what they like, what they don't like, through focus groups, surveys, etc. And also observation that we've also touched on, right? Actual simple observation from any type of broadcaster. So whether you are working in any department, not only just on air, but a broadcaster in general, so working for a radio station, needs to be aware of their direct target market to really understand what they are thinking, what they are, where they are at, where they are spending their extra like recreational time as well, and where they work, etc. There's so many different things that obviously describe us as human beings, right? But a good way to get to know your new audience is by looking at the format of the station, right? In other words, the playlist. So when we discussed licensing before, you also were a bit of like a bit more familiar with formats of stations. So we discussed CHR and HR and like urban adult contemporary as well. That were kind of the main branches here in South Africa. And then we had obviously the PBS, etc., talk music radio, talk music hybrids, etc. Right. Those are the formats of a station. In other words, what is included in terms of music oriented, because obviously talk does not have a quote unquote playlist, right, with music. We're talking about like obviously the music formatted stations, right? So the format usually indicates the age and the likes of a listener. It's in the name, the adult contemporary music or station format, right? Urban youth, as we said, the alternative youth. We also had an example of like dance contemporary or whatever it may be, right? Dance hit radio, which we don't have over here, as we discussed before. By this, you can assume that if the listener is into social media, or is into social media, should I say, has kids, income level, so the social economic measurement, etc. There are many different ways that we can go and look at this audience, as I mentioned before, through our research. So, why is the clock now all of a sudden mentioned here? Why do we bring up the clock? Because the clock is constructed in ways that will serve this or these types of particular audiences right within the format that dictates the music that's going to be played in our libraries, from our libraries, should I say. And so the thing is, the radio clock will also then include kind of the consistency and Well, I mean, the what's the word I'm looking for? So, how many times again? So, the consistency as well as also the repetitive nature of how many links there might be in a show, how many should be admin or generic housekeeping, how many should be then kind of leveled up to broader content links as well, promotions, etc., things that we have discussed before. So it brings order and structure. It makes sure that you keep your timing, you as a broadcaster that we did discuss before, your main biggest skill is amongst others. There are other main skills, but your time management is mandatory, right? And it's non-negotiable as well. That is just a skill that you have to apply yourself as a professional, and that everything plays out when it should, right? So this is what a clock looks like, right? In this particular case, this is a syndicated show. You can almost tell by assumption, I suppose, that this would be talk radio. We have talk radio here with these show segments over here. This is clearly an American station that is being based on or generically placed on network news. That's how you know it's syndicated. So network news across different stations. The same news is going out. There's a commercial break that might follow this. The show segment, again, we could interpret that right here, and we'll do better clocks. I'm saying more defined clocks in just a moment. So it could be music sweeps. It could be an entire talk segment over here, noting obviously the timing. You see, it's not 2 minutes past something, it's just 2 minutes, 6 minutes, and so on. Like, for example, at the bottom of the hour, we have our network news once again, a commercial break that more sits there, right? I'm not too sure as to what that's supposed to indicate. Probably could be a spot break or could be an update in some other way. Right, show segment network breaks, right? Again, these are, so that's definitely like network, so syndicated advertising, local, I'm saying to the station, specific to the station, advertising over there. All right, but just an example, we'll get into more detailed ones in just a moment, right? I do want to, so from here, you're going to see something almost similar in the PDF that I'm going to share in just a moment. We'll break away from the slides. Just want to do one or two more, and you'll see how that actually, how different clocks are also interpreted, right? No two clocks are the same. So in other words, from 1 hour of your show, your 3 hour or 4 hour show, it'll be different to the second, third, fourth hour, whatever it may be, right? Because different things happen at different times of day, right? And obviously, different days in the week also call for different actions to be implemented or executed slash delivered. Each hour of this clock is created specifically for a time of day or for a specific show. So, excuse me, clocks for primetime shows will be full of commercials, definitely a lot more, obviously, advertising spots and competitions that are scheduled within that particular show. We do stay. So, for example, you're going to question now, how do we know when we're building the clock? Because we should build the clock once, right? And then from there, what we do is we then base prep based, like, for example, on this stagnant clock. We'll do it once, and then we'll make sure that every single day's prep or show's prep is based on the clock. Right. So where will we schedule then, for example, a competition? It's easy. We'll do it in one of the show segments or again, one of the links that you've obviously decided on. You and your program manager, ideally probably more so your program manager, will decide on where links will happen in the show. And again, it'll have everything in consideration. So for example, once again, time spent listening, obviously different quarter hours will bring about different I would say demands, I suppose, right, from the client. So they preference their competition in certain slots as well. And again, advertising and all the benchmark elements that do come across as well. What will you find on a radio clock? Right. So music, spots, news, traffic, sports, spots or station imaging. Sorry. So not spots there. Station imaging, jingles, IDs, right? Um, and obviously, the American term for it, I'm sure you've seen it before. The American term is a call letter, right? Not to get it confused. It's a call letter. All right. Anyway, so let's stick to the stuff that we understand. So station imaging, IDs, stings, and then jingles. Kind of think of jingles as the little term. So there's definitely some production in there. Perhaps it's a little bit musicy, So in other words, there might be some music elements in there as well. And so it's a jingle, like a show jingle or a feature jingle, or it could be like I say, a kind of like a jingle bumper, right? So it could be a collective of things that we're mixing together, right? To kind of brand the station and the feeling, the atmosphere, the tone, and again the format we're trying to showcase there. All right, anyway, and presenter links are also obviously included in the clock. All of this is carefully planned out to suit the show. So we know what the listener is expecting, what they're busy doing at that time of day, and then we will construct a clock based on that kind of behavior. So we know that they would prefer more music specifically, or they're requesting or expecting more news, or more information. Again, depending on which time of day it is. Okay, so which time slot? It makes sense not to have traffic at 20 past 2 in the morning. What would be the sense in it? So what would it say? Well, the roads are clear, and once again, in the next update, the roads are still clear, 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 and clear. Right? Traffic makes sense from about like 5 in the morning onwards. Some traffic throughout the day, during lunch and brunch, and definitely in drive, because again of the listeners' life, right? Their lifestyle. So we create clocks to reflect what the listener is doing and might need at that particular time. Again, as I just said, what do they demand in terms of their particular lifestyle demands, right? So the breakfast that we normally expect between 6 and 9, some of them start at 5, some of them end at 10, and so on and so forth. But the breakfast generally at that time, and the drive 6 to 7, sorry, 4 to 7 o'clock. Again, also could start at 3, end at 6, maybe, right? These two shows have lots of breaks with fewer music sweeps, because it's when the listener is in traffic and needs maximum entertainment. So, um, we have our best presenters on those shows for that particular reason, because there's a lot of control, a lot of experience, and again, kind of that octopus effect that I was telling you about. You must be one of those like really proficient octopi, right? And know exactly how to handle many different people in that particular show, many different, obviously, segments, segues, and different elements. Again, in terms of competitions, promos, breaks, bumpers, I say, billboards, all that type of stuff that this breakfast or drive presenter should know and be very familiar with. They need to offer value, entertain the audience, because they can get music on Spotify if they want, right? And we need to keep them listening to us, because of the high volume of people in traffic at those times means that we have basically a captive audience, right? So a potential captive audience doesn't mean that they will listen to you. Like if you do give them enough of a reason to not want to listen to you because the show is bad, you're bad, you've done bad things, quote unquote, they're just going to be like, thanks, but no thanks. And I'll try probably some other options before they decide, well, I'm going to just kind of do away with radio for the moment. I'm not getting what I want, right? So again, it's not that other shows are not aiming to add value and not aiming to not obviously entertain the audience. We do that across the station and across obviously the lineup, but again, that demand for that active audience, right, is in high demand of great entertainment, right? So, and they're also very temperamental at those times, much more temperamental and unforgiving in breakfast and drive, just because of the temperament of the day, right? So you're starting out the day, you're like, "Ugh, no, thank you, no, thanks very much," and you'll be like, if any one particular thing irritates me, I'm going to have a knee-jerk reaction to that and just like switch off the station, right? Same thing for at the end of the day, you're tired, you are stuck in traffic, which is never pleasant, as we've said before, and as life has dictated, clearly, never something exciting happening under the umbrella of traffic. And so the thing is, again, temperamental, very temperamental, right? I'd like to say that the way that you approach, obviously, that the breakfast and the drive listener is the same way you should approach any listener, right? Just with respect and wanting the end game to be the same, which is keep them there and not have them tune out at the end of the day. The way that obviously you use your clock and the way that you balance stuff out, so elements out, again, moving quickly, like I said, from one thing to another to keep their attention, keep them stimulated. Is how we make them listen longer, in addition to obviously the great value that we do offer them. So, for example, in daytime, so let's say anything between 9 and 4 o'clock or 9 to 3 o'clock, whatever it is, depending on when those two drive shows start and end, right? Okay. And earlier evening, so the breakfast, we call it the nighttime breakfast between 7 and 10 o'clock, 7 to 9 o'clock, shows they've also got a lot of listeners, right? But we fill the clock with more music. And why do you think that is? Because the temperament is different. You are at work at that particular point. You're busy with stuff quite actively. I'm saying that needs and requires your attention because you're at work. And at the end of the day, you are choosing. Really, there's no reason for you to want to tune into or need to tune into radio once you're home. So if you are choosing to obviously tune into a station as a companion for anything that you are doing, cooking, studying, whatever it is, maybe you, I don't know, maybe you want to clean the house at that point, you want to shave, whatever it may be, right? It's always nice to have the radio on. And then you want to have some cool presenters definitely at night. Um, that are engaging, something that definitely stimulates my mind in an entertaining way, right? But definitely great music, edgier music, and something that it doesn't seem like we're demanding a lot from them. That's why all the elements like traffic and news, etc., all fall away after 7 o'clock, right? And we want to make sure that because they made that really that conscious choice of tuning in after 7 o'clock, man, yeah. So think of the person that is at the office and what they would and wouldn't want to be irritated or engaged with. Say irritated because you are again you've got to focus somewhere else, and anything that distracts you from there in an unpleasant way is irritating. Right, and then comparison to different times of day, like for example, the evening, maybe the late evening, weekends, etc. So we do this because daytime and early evening listeners are more passive, right? They want the company. They want the company. They're not necessarily likely to call in because of what they are busy with while they are tuned in to the station. Unlike the two drive time shows where they are just in their car, man. And most active listeners, so when I say active listeners, they are the ones that are more likely to interact with the station anyway, they will call you and they find it not only to kill time, but it is also in their nature, their personality to want to interact with the station. Anyway, they're working or cooking dinner, and they are hearing but not listening as attentively as people who are stuck in traffic. So we offer more music and content that is less interactive, and we still have high ad. We have high ad volumes. Ad. Let me just change that. That spelling is not correct. Right. So high ad volumes because the audience is still sizable. So in other words, it's a good size, a good measure, good capacity of high volumes of audiences or listeners. So we want to still be able to advertise definitely a lot in these particular slots. So the only difference is at 7 o'clock, we usually stop the news and traffic. Talk radio is the exception, right? So when we look at, let's say, nighttime, sorry, again, just want to jump ahead so I just know where I'm going. Nighttime and weekend radio. So after 9 o'clock, again, 10 o'clock as well, right? All the way to 6 o'clock. Most of the stations are now automated, definitely after the 12 o'clock, really almost become a norm. And it carries on till about maybe 4 o'clock. Some people have a very early morning breakfast, so pre breakfast show at 4 to 6 or 5 to 6. when people are active. They are active and they do need information and they do want that companionship from the station itself, right? But very, very, very little interactive, very little to no interactive elements in the show. Just again, we'll cross promote. We'll do some basic entertainment segments, basic new. I'm saying current affairs if necessary. Really, it's hardly ever necessary, right? But mostly brand oriented, so station oriented links and just companionship at the end of the day, right? You're just there. You're playing the music. You have a friendly, welcoming environment. That's what's requested of you. So you obviously do the best at that and be the best at what you are expected to do. So we are mostly a companion at this time. So weekend clocks are also more music with more sporadic news and sports, depending on the time of day, and also depending on the station. If they feel like at our station we do news all the way to 3 o'clock, right? But hourly, and then with some headlines at 30 past, right? Sports so a lot of commercial stations will include sports on a Saturday, definitely, maybe early morning Sunday, right? Because of the fixtures. So it's definitely relevant to the lifestyle of our listeners. And then again, maybe sporadic traffic now and then when we can see on the roads there is definitely like enclosures or there are obstacles or there's massive traffic jams that are really erratic. So, kind of, out of the ordinary, definitely, right? So weekends also popular for speciality shows. So definitely like obviously the music shows, the top 40s, top 20s, top 10s, whatever it may be, right? Sports oriented shows, golden oldies, anything that is speciality based predominantly on music, right? So again, house, dance, that type of stuff, depending on what type of listener we have as our target, right? And our core. Saturdays are usually reserved for main shows of the weekend, like the top 30, right? That normally we want to play later on in the day. We don't want to do it too early, right? We're finding that top 30s are and top 40s or top 20s, whatever, are better consumed later on in the day. So let's say like 11, 12 o'clock, something we will go past 12 o'clock, right? When people are enjoying kind of their recreational time with other people, with their families, whatever it is, kind of in the garden, whatever, braaiing, that type of thing. And the top 30 makes cool sense, right? Instead of in the morning, which it was again a bit of a norm. Obviously, at 10 o'clock is still a bit of a norm to do a top 40. Some people would do it. Some stations would do it a little earlier, like 9 o'clock as well. Not actually, I would lie. That's a bit ridiculous. It would always start minimum at 10 o'clock, right? But again, most stations have pushed it beyond 11, 12 o'clock, right? To kind of suit the listener lifestyle, right? We want to make sure that top 30s listen to or top 40s listen to, right? Again, also, it's been uh, in some stations it's been diluted, right, to a top 20 because people maybe of that station's nature. So that target market finds a top 40 too exhaustive, right? So 4 hours of back to back to back to back countdown music is also exhaustive. You got to go from 39 to 38 to 37. Now we're at 28. It just is a bit too long, for some people in certain stages of their life, right? So again, the type of target audience, you've researched well enough to see what do they want, top 20, 30, or 40, playing all the station's best new music in one show, usually around 10 to 1 o'clock, while listeners are out and about doing shopping, etc. Right? So that's what I was saying to you. We kind of lose them. We found that we obviously lose them. People don't really carry the station with them during shopping. They consider that distracting on their own. I mean, it's distraction enough because you got to get the stuff that you want. You want to go to the shops that you have to, pay the bills that you have to. So normal, I say quote unquote the norm. I was going to say normal people. It is normal people, right? I have always have earphones on always wherever I'm going, either playing music from direct from my phone, Spotify, or I am listening to a station, right? But everyone kind of else is not really doing that, right? So definitely different strokes, different folks. Do you see now how important clocks are in the radio world? Because again, it's been paved out for you to understand. Listen, like there's so much more to understand, and we're just obviously touching on the surface, right? Lastly, what else should we put on or in our clock and when? For example, in a breakfast show, our 8 to 9 o'clock, let's look at some of the other elements. For example, 8 o'clock news with sports headlines, right? And probably traffic headlines will also happen at the beginning or the top of the hour. 8:20 traffic and spots, 8:30 sports, followed by news headlines and spots. 8:40 traffic and spots, 8:58 spots before the news. Spots advertising, just remember that, right? So those spaces are permanently filled because like these are not like debatable, right? We have news and we don't have it at any other time. We have it at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour, accompanied by sports, traffic, weather, financial indicators, etc. Right? So you can place your music, imaging, and breaks in between obviously these elements and your music elements and your links, right? Okay. As long as it doesn't interfere with the main service elements or the main service element breaks of your show. Let's see that it's that here plus ads and spots, right? We're going to get to this in just a moment. What I want to do is I'm going to just stop the share so we can get some terminology, right? Just give me a sec. Here we go. Okay, so I'm sure you can see this. It's going to click this a little bit bigger. Uh, here we go. Right, so here's another example of a clock, right? Still looks a little bit foreign, I would suppose. I do include it. I know I included this one in my book. It is quite common when you go and find this and you go look up Google or some clocks, whatever it may be, right? So here, for example, a bit all over the place. We've got weather here. We got current hits, commercials sitting there, like all these new hits, current hits, commercials, another sweep of music over here. You can see that there are no actual links put into this clock, right? And so this one is again not the best clock to go on, but it is a very generic kind of to show you rotation in terms of music, maybe new hits, currents, oldies, and so on and so forth, right? With inclusion obviously spots, etc. Do not do this. So do not go from 0 to 5 minutes and 10 minutes and 15 minutes and 20, right? You can do that as a marker but not as obviously a definitive. For example, you must actually go and put in the actual time that is passed when you're doing, for example, this live promo just after, maybe I don't know. I suppose this one would be maybe just before or after this new hit, right? Anyway, so you'll see the example that I give is, and I'm not trying to brag, it is just better, right? But let's look at some definitions here as well. So what is bumper music? Whoops. Yeah. Bumper music, it's short, well, these are short music clips used to transition between one element of a program into another. For example, when a syndicated talk show is ready to allow a local affiliate station to insert local commercials, it'll often play a signature music piece to allow the transition. So bumper music. So music that we actually use to fill in, right? Fill in when we're trying to syndicate. Okay. So we can get the balance from, let's say, syndication to local to each particular station. So maybe there's syndication of 3 or 4 or 5 stations, right? The breaks might be longer or shorter. And we put in filler music, bumper music, right? That can avoid any dead air while the spots are obviously being synchronized, right? Or being played in synchronization. The call letters, right? So obviously the official legal name of the radio station, for example, WABC or KOSL FM, since we don't have any in Birdville yet, right? Okay, go with Studio B Radio, whatever it may be, right? So just the name of the station there. Copy, what is copy, right? I think you know that. So any written format of, for example, live reads, so written material such as the commercial or promotional announcement, doing a promo contest. It's the mechanisms that are given to us by the sales department, right, to make sure that we read out on air in obviously that order and execute, for example, a promotion competition in that order. right? Because that's how it's been paid for, and this is how it obviously has been planned. And again, once again, like a live read, definitely will get the copy for that as well, whether it be in or on the playback system, or it might be actual and hard copy paper, right? So, drops. What are drops? These are sound bites lifted from movies, TV, and other sources used by DJs to accentuate skits and programming, right? So, different drops. Format clock is the clock that you saw there. It's got a little circle there. It's got all the little elements, which we're going to have a look at in a more detailed one, as I keep saying. But from hour to hour, it will differ. Again, we see there no two clocks are the same. They shouldn't be the same, right? What's a jingle then? So it's a produced programming element which is usually produced by professional studio singers who sing DJ names or station positioning phrases, like the most music, right? Jingles that have a lot of, like I say, I've said to you before, a lot of production that goes in there. We can have, for example, wet and cold IDs as well. So a cold ID will have no music, no effects, that type of thing, but a wet ID will have the production elements. So, like I say, that the sound kind of those cool sound effects that make it just, I don't know, I suppose just stick out a little bit more. Both are just as good and as the other, right? We have a time and place for cold, and we have a time and place for um, wet IDs, right? Okay, anyway, so what's a log? It's the written record of what transpires in three areas: the music, the commercials, and the content, right? So you will be given a log that, in, I suppose, quote unquote, olden days, you would have to sign off with a lot of stations still obviously do that because you have to say, I did play this and I did do this, so that if you did and we do some kind of playback, there is maybe a complaint or there's a checkup from, like a client, whatever it is, and you said you did most play this advert or you did this competition at this time or whatever it is, then you'll be like obviously hauled in for a disciplinary, right? So the log is kind of signing off a commitment, right, to what you have done in the show. The playlist is obviously just a playlist of the music, right? And you'll see that when you look at the details of each song, because of the playback system that you're using, it'll give obviously, for example, like its genre, the year it was released, maybe some cool facts about it as well, depending on what the music compiler has decided. Listen, yeah, I want to, insert right when I am putting in this song into the system, right? What is a promo? It's an announcement, live or pre-recorded, which promotes an upcoming event, promotes the station image itself, promotes results of a past event, or promotes any other event which benefits the station image or activities. Public service announcement is quite standard. I know I know you know what that means because we have discussed it before. What is a sound bite? Right, very short clip that has we included maybe in news, we included perhaps some certain sound bites we might use accumulatively, so one backed up by another one, perhaps maybe in some of our callouts or our content, right? Predominantly, we'll have the sound bite included in news, so you'll hear them say, "The Minister of Health had this to say," and then you'll have the sound bite that's included. What's a stinger? A sound effect or musical effect that punctuates a punchline or emphasizes a thought. So this technique is often used by DJs and comedians, the little sound effects that we put in there. And then sweeper, right? So with music, ID, jingle, whatever it is, to another song, whatever it may be. Um, it's the transition. We go from one element, quote unquote, one packaged element to another on the show. Right. Okay. So there is also the empty clock. Right. Okay. And I'm going to actually include. So I'll just include this as one of the uploads that will accompany this particular video. And then I will also, this is very cool. It's actually something for my short course students, but I'll include this, the power of radio. Very cool. I'll share it with all the students, right? Very cool read that we can do maybe a bit together when I see you, right? But please definitely go have a look at it on your own. It really covers kind of radio in a nutshell, right? And very cool, very helpful as well. Now stop that share. Go back to the slide. Yeah, I was going to go back. There's another. Yeah, so the clock I'm going to leave right to the end. Right, I'm saying the detailed clock, and that'll make sense together. Okay. All right. So some things to remember when we do things in a very strict and standard manner, no matter what the station, so wherever you are, we follow this particular structure and approach because that's how it's been defined to work the best. So we all do it in that way. There is an order to do this, right? And that is done globally. You never stray from this approach, right? Okay. And again, I was going to say, I think approach is literally says it all. You never play two songs back to back without a jingle to separate them, right? So you'll put a jingle in between. It's clean. It obviously IDs the station. We don't want that kind of that segue between the two songs going. I don't know. There might be a fader. It doesn't matter. We need to make sure that the branding is always what shines throughout the clock itself, what shows throughout the day, whatever it may be. Never speak directly after spots. So you want to just get back to the music, right? You can do news or sports, but you separate it from the spots with a jingle, doing a link after an ad, an, ad, right? Makes it sound like the ad is sponsoring what you are saying. So you might, however, speak before a spot. Definitely, I always recommend, please speak before a spot break. Don't go from music to spots. Just keep it clean and obviously keep it professional. All right. You never speak after a jingle. Jingles are only for in between songs, right? So, okay, those are pretty clear, right? To keep in mind when we are going to be looking at your time on air. So time sensitive elements, again, just a generic recommendation for these different stations will have different durations based on what their focus groups and their surveys have indicated to them would be obviously the correct choice for programming and obviously allocating these particular elements and more throughout the clock. But here is like I say, an overall guideline. For example, news at the top of the hour could be 90 seconds. At the bottom of the hour, obviously the headlines, 30 seconds. Uh, that's definitely more accepted. The sports, anything between 90 seconds to about maybe 3 minutes, right? Same here, obviously, with the news as well. Sports headlines at the top of the hour, right? 30 seconds. Weather, top and bottom of the hour. Definitely nothing more than 30 seconds. Really, there's only so much you can say about weather. Traffic at the top and the bottom. So only the updates, not the ones that we have in between, the actual traffic, the full traffic updates. Also, 30 seconds. So only bring in the highlights, right? The obviously the incidents that are affecting the listener the most, right? What we bring up at the top and the bottom of the hour. Spot breaks, so there are different clocks that will dictate different spot breaks. One, this is the SABC format. So at 22 minutes past, 38 minutes past, and 52 minutes past. So you can imagine a clock, right? One over here, one over there, and one at the top, right? I hope you can see my cursor just going up and down. Right. Okay. Anyway, right. So let's go. Hot clocks. I'm going to break them down. The clock can be called by many different names. Quite popular is what we call it the hot clock, right? So when we are building the clock for a show and per hour, once again, right, we need the imaging before and again, just to kind of remind you once again of that kind of construct when you are moving throughout that hour. Always link before spots and throw forward to a song or content after the ads that are going to happen, right? Okay. Because it's clean and you don't want, so like I say, association from spot to song at any one point, right? Remember, a throw forward is not telling the listener what is coming up, but rather why they should actually listen, right? That kind of it's what's called a teaser, right? We're teasing towards what's coming up. It's selling them content or a really like something cool about the song that you're about to play. Maybe it's mysterious, whatever it may be. there's many different ways in which we can actually throw forward in terms of a teaser for a song. And again, same applies for any music, sorry, content, any interviews that might be happening, whatever it may be, right? Callers that we might have online and pre-prepared, right? Keep them listening longer, right? Keep that time spent listening extra 5 minutes, extra 5 minutes, extra 5 minutes, then just stick around for another 5 minutes. You're doing your job. Try and limit the length of that talk time. On average, 2.5 to 3 minutes per link, right? But obviously, you're going to say, I hear many stations that do much shorter links and much longer links as well. It depends on what it is that you're doing and obviously how captivating that particular piece of content is, as we have discussed before. Okay, try not to link after news. Again, as you said there before, listeners sat through 3 to 4 minutes. They don't want to hear you talking more. You just want to, after you, because you've done spots 10 to 1, news, traffic, sports update, weather, financial indicators, get back to the music. Play the jingle and move along. Sports and traffic also followed by a jingle and then music. So we can separate these segments, right? These elements and make sure that we have clear and concise kind of like triggers, not triggers, but identifiers, right? IDs to show something else is happening now. Never go into sports, traffic, or news directly after music. These links are good for throwing forward, and this is to keep the listener from tuning out. You want them to stick around for after the news. These are not reasons why people tune out. These are helpful and informative, whatever it may be, right? Okay. And so you want to again say to them, yeah, there's going to be obviously we have again this throw forward teaser for the element that's happening after the music sweep, which follows this particular obviously news. What am I going to say here? Like bunch, right? Right. News collective to make it sound fancy. Right. Keep these 6 rules in mind when you create your clock. Okay. So as we said there before, what is a sweeper? Uh, again, in that literally is coming out from what we just saw there, a short pre-recorded sample used by a radio station between songs to give listener a brief station identifier or a promo, generally 20 seconds or less. So you're listening to the soft sound of BMH radio, easy listening throughout the Bay Area or the Santon area. For example, sweepers are also known as liners, bumpers, radio imaging, sweeps, station imaging, stingers, IDs, idents, right, promos, shotguns, and intros. Most sweepers will have a voiceover included on the audio, right? You say to me, so this is the umbrella for all these, like I say, there's these imaging elements that we include as part of our clock itself. So once again, to push this, remember that there are two types of links: the actual content piece, the content links, so very obviously uh, rich in dimension, rich in purpose. I'm saying relevance, right? And again, entertaining, infotaining, right? Informative. And then we have throw forwards, teasers, promises that you are using to obviously entice them to those particular content pieces. So here are the two defined. What is a promise? A promise is also called a teaser, right? Or excuse the spelling on them. Right, or a throw forward. Right, it promises the listener that what they are about to listen to is, excuse again, going to be a value, right? And that they should stay tuned in for the content that's going to come up. Promise or a teaser, right? So the promise finds an emotive hook. We're obviously not going to just say, oh, coming up next is. We're going to be like, we're going to put some effort into it. Really like tug on some certain type of what are you attracting them with, right? What are you making them curious about? And so you'll use certain types of diction, vocab, and the way obviously that you're expressing a teaser, right? The way that you are enticing them to stay tuned a little longer. All right. The performance, so the link that the promise was actually teasing towards, the actual content piece, Now you have the attention of this particular listener. You have to obviously deliver on the promise. What you promised them in tease and said, this was going to be so great, great interview, whatever it may be, right? You have to actually deliver. They'll be like, whoa, you really don't know what quality actually is defined as. What makes the performance worthwhile is that it is in some way sparks some kind of emotive reaction from our listener. So this should move your audience to be happy or to smile or to be sad or angry or connected, empathy, whatever it may be, right? Okay, and uh, here's the activity. I'll get to it in just a moment if I do need to talk a little bit more about it, but I do want to get into that. Actually, I'm going to switch back. It's going to make more sense. Let me just stop the share. Once again, let's share. So this is, it's come from the short course. As you can see, kind of the same thing as that we've just added in between there, but this is what I actually focus on. I'm just going to, so you don't, I think it's good, not I think I know, it's better to just know kind of the intensity and the detail of what a clock entails and how to do it just from the get-go so that you don't run into some kind of confusion or obstruction or some kind of foreign, this is not a, like a foreign aspect to you in your third year. I know my handwriting is not neat, right? But I will go and tell you what this is. In particular, that will be, let's say, the music categories, top 40, alternative local. Over here, you'll see it's like a classic and then maybe a bubbling under. We're not going to talk about music rotation right now. I want you to look at the clock because we're focusing on clocks, right? So here, again, I used averages. So for any ID or jingle, maybe 10 seconds. And I said for any song, 3.5 minutes on average. And then I varied the length because the link could be at any one point, it could be, like I say, just an intro, like a bit of a welcome teaser, which will be nothing more than about a minute and a half, I think, for an opening of a show. Then it could also be like a admin link, which could be nothing more than 30 seconds. You'll see down here with this link over here, it's about, I think it's about 30 seconds, right? Again, we'll change and chop that around from show to show. This is just to show you how it might work. For example, like on a drive show, right, or a breakfast show. 4 minutes for the news bulletin, the indicators, the financial indicators, right, and the weather, right. That does say weather. All right, sports headlines, another 30 seconds. You see a 4 minutes, 30 seconds, another 30 seconds for the traffic update, then an ID there at 10 seconds, a top 40 song, a jingle bubbling under here, a link that'll last 3 minutes here. So from 11 minutes 20 seconds to 14 minutes 20 seconds. If you go down second here, that 14:20 to 17:50 is 3.5 minutes, which is time to play an alternative local song, right? With an ID, 10 seconds once again, take us to 18 over there. Then a classic over here, from classic to another link, 21, 30 to 24 gives us, what is it, 2.5 minutes, right? Going to another bubbling under. So I play one song here just because I got spots here from 28 past to 30 past here. And so I don't really have enough time to go and play another song because those are, let's say, assumed what, let's say, the spot break's going to be, right? So spots maybe 2 minutes over here. It's enough time to do like a 30-second generic throw forward teaser that'll happen after the sports, the traffic, and the news. The news headlines, traffic, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Sports bulletin is, I think it's 3 minutes, right? That's supposed to be, it looks like a six, but it's not. It's a zero. There we go. That's zero. Phew, that's a mess. Right. That's 31, right? 31. Uh then it should be where we oh yeah. Yeah, 31 to 34. That's crossing out. Yeah, no, that makes sense, right? So that's 3 minutes for the sports. I should have put in a jingle there. My mistake. Just put a 10-second jingle and then go to another top 40 song in the second half of the hour. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Just have a quick look at the exercise. I'd like you to go and do, and we can go have feedback at any one point. Right. So already one students would have covered the clock in their first year. That's you, right, in your past lives. Begin the lesson by asking each student, that's me to you, to draw the clock using the instructions on page 116 on next or from next level radio. So again, something that I mean, I'm going to leave it for now, not the beginning of the lesson, because even in my third year, when I go onto the clock, the students don't remember it. Remember what I said about radio? Radio is cumulative as a subject, so it goes on one year to another year to another year. All of it is important that you learn everything that you do learn. Let 3 to 4 students draw and explain their clocks to the entire class, which I will definitely do when I see you again, because it's super important that I know that you know how to do this. So start doing it at home, right, as we move along the lessons. And then we'll play 2 audio examples of excellent promise, right, and explain obviously what promise is, and examples of performance, right, that will showcase in class together. All right. We have looked at different links before, right? But we will go and then scrutinize more radio as we are together. I'd rather play this, I'd rather do this in live radio that we're listening together with. And yeah, I think that's about it. Please, so just keep up with the lessons and sorry, let me just do this here. Okay. And then yeah, here's the more right. Okay, there we go. I nearly got a heart attack because I was like, where's the stop recording? Right, yeah. Okay, anyway, yeah. Really great. Have a great week ahead. Enjoy your off time, right? And I'll see you for the next week's lessons. Cheers, bye.